Her hand was shaking. 7.5 feet of slate-gray authority, silver markings that had once commanded war packs across 3 systems. And her hand was shaking. The beast lowered its massive head toward her palm. Its ridges pulsed violet. She whispered something, and everything changed. There's a story about what it costs to reach something that has stopped trusting anyone. If that's the kind of story you stay up late for, subscribe to Stellar HFY Stories. We'll be right here, every night in the quiet between the stars. 3 weeks before that moment, the hardest thing in Cale Morrow's day had been a jammed cargo latch on Deck 7 and the particular smell of a space that hadn't seen fresh air in 6 months. He hadn't asked for the beast. That was the thing nobody seemed to understand when they dropped the chains into his cargo bay, signed 3 forms, and left without making eye contact. He hadn't volunteered, hadn't been selected, and the station debt collector had looked at Cale's outstanding balance, looked at the manifest, and decided that babysitting an extinction-class predator in exchange for wiped interest was a reasonable trade for everyone except Cale. The creature filled a quarter of Deck 7, 6 legs folded beneath its armored body, 4 meters of it pressed against the far wall, chains bolted to 3 separate anchor points in the floor. Its ridges, the long bioluminescent spines that ran from the base of its skull to the tip of its spine, burned a steady, furious red. It had been burning red for 6 hours. Kyle sat on his tool crate in the corner, elbows on his knees, and didn't look directly at it. He'd learned that much from dogs. You don't stare. You let them decide when they're done being scared. The tin was already in his hand before he'd consciously reached for it. Muscle memory. He'd carried salted jerky for 4 years. First for the dog, then just because his hands didn't know what else to do at 0200 in an empty space. He opened it. The ridges flickered, red to orange, just for a second. Kel looked down at the tin, then at the floor between them. Cold metal, dim yellow light pooling in the seams. He placed 1 strip of jerky down, about halfway between his boots and the nearest chain. Then he put the lid back on, set the tin beside him, and waited. The beast stared at the jerky. At him, at the jerky. 4 minutes, maybe 5. It ate. Cal reached for the bolt cutters without drama, the way he reached for any tool, because something needed doing, and he was the one sitting there. The first chain came free with a sound like exhaled breath. Then the second. The beast didn't move during either, just watched him with eyes that had seen 40 years of ceilings and chains and nothing gentle. The third chain hit the floor. Silence. Then the creature stood. All of it, all 4 meters, 6 legs unfolding with a sound like tectonic patience, and lowered its head until its brow was level with Kyle's outstretched palm. His hand was shaking. He hadn't noticed until then. The ridges went blue. "Okay," Kyle said quietly, to no one in particular. "Okay." Days settled into something he didn't have a word for. The beast slept beside his tool crate, followed him through the lower corridors at a distance that shrank gradually, the way trust actually works. Not all at once, but in increments too small to name, while they're happening. He started leaving an extra strip of jerky on the crate lid before his shift. It was always gone when he got back. The comedy of it arrived without warning on a Thursday, during a routine pressure check on the starboard coupling. Kyle was crouched beside the housing panel, stylus in one hand, and when something the approximate size and weight of a small ground vehicle pressed firmly against his jacket pocket, the nudge nearly put him into the bulkhead. "Hey!" He caught himself on the panel, turned around and found the beast's enormous head approximately 8 inches from his face, eyes patient, ridges cycling an expectant blue. The pocket with the jerky tin. "You weigh 2 tons, Kale said. You cannot be subtle about snacks." The beast blinked, nudged again, gentler this time, with the particular dignity of a creature that had decided manners were worth trying exactly once. "Something quiet is growing in that cargo bay. If you want to see where it goes, subscribe. We never rush the good parts." He gave it 3 strips instead of 1. Beat 3 arrived the way disruptions always do on deep space haulers, without announcement, filling the doorway before anyone had time to prepare. Mikhail heard the cargo bay door unseal and looked up from the pressure gauge he'd been recalibrating. She filled the entrance the way a storm fills a valley, not with noise, but with the certainty that the air had changed. 7.5 feet, slate gray skin, silver markings etched from jaw to collarbone, catching the dim yellow light like circuitry. She moved the way something moves when it has spent decades learning to take up exactly as much space as it needs, and not 1 inch more. The beast's ridges shifted, violet, just a flash, then still. The woman's markings pulsed in answer. Involuntary, Kale thought, the way a held breath releases without permission. She stood at the entrance and looked at the creature she hadn't seen in 40 years. Something crossed her face that wasn't quite grief and wasn't quite relief. It was the specific expression of a person arriving somewhere they thought they'd never reach, only to find the door already open. "Well, that beast is mine," she said. Her voice was controlled, precise. The voice of someone who learned long ago that composure is armor. Kyle set down the gauge. It was, 40 years ago. She looked at him then, really looked, the way commanders assess. And he let her. He had nothing to hide. A freight hauler with calloused hands and a missing ring finger and a tin of jerky in his pocket. Not a threat, not important. Just a man sitting beside a creature that had, for reasons Kale still didn't fully understand, decided to stay. She didn't leave. She crossed the cargo bay and sat against the far wall, watching. She came back the next day, and the day after that. Kyle stopped finding it strange by the 3rd visit. He just worked and talked to the beast in the low, unhurried way he'd talk to the dog. Not commands, never commands, just narration. Pressure couplings holding. Smells like the recycler's overdue. "You want another piece, or are you actually full for once?" The beast's ridges stayed blue. Severa watched. He could feel it. Not uncomfortably, just the way you feel a lamp in a dim room. Present, steady. She was studying something, and after a while he understood it wasn't the beast she was trying to figure out. Night cycle. The ship's lighting dropped to its low amber idle, and the cargo bay settled into the particular quiet that Deck 7 had become. The beast's slow breathing. The distant hum of the engine felt through the floor, the cold metal holding the warmth of 3 bodies reluctantly. Severa was sitting across from him. The beast slept between them, ridges cycling a soft, unconscious blue. She said, "I raised it from a hatchling. I was the first thing it saw." Cal didn't answer. He'd learned that some sentences aren't looking for a response. They're looking for a witness. "When they took it from me," she said, Kirsta screamed for 3 days. Her command markings dimmed. Not a flicker, a slow fade, like lights being turned down from somewhere far away. "I heard it from my cell." The silence after that had weight. "I came here to take it back." She stopped. Her jaw tightened against the next word. But it doesn't what? Kale said quietly. Her voice dropped. It doesn't look at me the way it looks at you. He sat with that for a moment. The beast's breath rose and fell between them, steady as a tide. It's not looking at me because I'm special, he said. It's looking at me because I'm not a threat. I didn't give it orders. I gave it jerky and sat down. He looked at her across the sleeping creature. You used to be like that, before whatever they did to you. Her silver markings flared, bright, sudden, raw, and then dimmed again, like something flinching back from its own light. I forgot, she said. That's not the same as lost. The Vraxith woke without drama, and it simply opened its eyes the way large things move when they have no reason to rush, and looked at her, then at Kale, then back at her. Its ridges shifted through colors he couldn't name, cycling the way they did sometimes when it was working something out. Then it stood. It walked to Sevra. 4 meters of armored predator, 6 legs placing themselves with quiet deliberateness on the cold metal floor, until it was standing in front of the woman who had been the first thing it ever saw. Hornidit lowered its massive head. Her hand came up slowly. It was shaking, the same trembling he'd felt in his own palm 3 weeks ago, in this same bay, in this same yellow light. She touched its ridge, violet, deep and steady, pulsing from the point of contact outward like warmth moving through something that had been cold for a very long time. The beast remembered, but it didn't stay with her. It turned, walked back to the center of the cargo bay, and lay down, equidistant, Cal realized. Precisely between them, its ridges cycled, blue toward him, violet toward her, and then something in the middle that had no name in any registry he knew. Sevra looked at him across the beast's back. The silver markings on her jaw had gone quiet. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. It didn't choose you over me. A breath. It chose the version of me it sees in you. Kyle reached into his jacket pocket. The tin came out dented and familiar, for the lid worn smooth where his thumb always caught it. He opened it. 2 pieces left. He held it out across the space between them, across the beast's slow-breathing back, across 40 years of chains and silence, and a cargo bay that smelled like coolant and something almost like warmth. Then stay, he said, and remember how to be her. Sevra looked at the tin for a long moment. She took a piece. The amber light held them there, all 3. The jerky tin sat empty on the cold metal floor between them, lid beside it, catching the light like something that had carried more than its size suggested. The beast's ridges glowed, that nameless color, the one between blue and violet, steady and unhurried, the way things glow when they have finally stopped bracing. Sevra's shoulder was 3 inches from Kale's. Neither had moved closer. Neither had moved away. That tin of jerky started as a habit for a dog he missed, where tonight it held something else entirely. What do you think Sevra does tomorrow morning? Does she leave, or does she find a reason to stay? Tell me in the comments and subscribe to Stellar HFY Stories. Tomorrow night, another quiet act changes everything.